Why don't you wait outside?
Famously known as the daughter of Victoria Neuman, Zoe Neuman has remained in the shadows for quite a long time. In the critically acclaimed Amazon Prime series The Boys, Victoria steps up as one of the antagonists of the show alongside Homelander, and she can be described as an anti-Supe activist and a congresswoman. Over her story arc, it's revealed that Victoria is a Supe as well, and despite her cruel nature, she has a softer side that's typically reserved for her daughter Zoe. Zoe's origins and powers have been shrouded in mystery for quite some time, but she's finally made quite a striking appearance in the newly released season of The Boys, even if she doesn't play a role in the comics. So without further ado, let's delve into her story arc and have a look at the magnificent powers and capabilities of Victoria Neuman's daughter Zoe Neuman. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Zoe Neuman? While we don't know a lot about Zoe's upbringing, she was portrayed by Olivia Morandin, and snippets from the season establish the fact that she was raised by Victoria Neuman and Stan Edgar. Stan had adopted Victoria when she was about 12 years old, and she grew into an accomplished congresswoman and learned to control her powers under his guidance. Eventually, Victoria ended up getting involved with an unnamed man, which led to her being pregnant with Zoe. Despite the fact that she would have to raise a kid all alone, Victoria gave birth to Zoe while Stan remained by her side and assured her that the child would be looked after. He raised Zoe like his own granddaughter and had quite a special bond with her, wherein he would often read to her. In fact, one of her first appearances involves Stan reading a story to her and then asking her if she wants him to reread it. The two of them have quite a playful bond, as Zoe declares that she's too old to read it, and then runs away to her room upstairs while Stan has a word with Victoria. As the season progresses, we see more of Zoe as she lingers in the background and watches television, while her mother and grandfather are engrossed in a conversation about Homelander. Zoe peacefully finishes her cereal bowl and then gets straight to business as she confides in her mother about not wanting to be injected with Compound V. For context, Compound V is the main reason behind the Supe's powers, and most Supes were injected with it in their childhood to attain maximum powers and reach their full potential. Developed by Vought, this compound is a blessing for the Supes, but at the same time, it's a painful process, and one has to be quite brave to be able to endure the injection. Given the nature of the compound, Zoe seemed quite hesitant about being injected with Compound V. However, Victoria believed that this was the only way to ensure her daughter's safety in the future, and she consoled her by saying that even she had undergone the same procedure as a child. Victoria further told Zoe all about how the compound would make her stronger than ever, and Zoe was convinced to undergo the process. Victoria then proceeded to inject her with a dose of Compound V, which instantly caused such a surge of pain and discomfort within Zoe's body that she started shrieking in pain. While Victoria knew that she was doing the right thing to protect her daughter, she could not bear to see her in so much pain, and she herself started crying when Zoe transformed in front of her eyes. Victoria did not leave her side for even a second, and hugged and comforted her in any way that she could. Terrifying appearance of Zoe Neuman in The Boys Season 4. First appearing in the season's debut episode, titled Department of Dirty Tricks, we see Zoe as a shy young girl with braces. This might seem to be a minute detail, but a lot of thought and back and forth went behind this decision, and we'll explore it further as the plot unfolds. Jumping back to the scene, Victoria introduces Zoe to Homelander and his son Ryan, and she politely greets them, while Butcher and the others observe from afar. Zoe seems to be acquainted with Ryan already, and Victoria soon suggests that the kids try out the hotel's famous ice cream, while the adults discuss other matters. While Homelander makes a crass joke about not getting pregnant while looking for ice cream, the kids make their way away from the gathering while Butcher spots them, especially taking note of Ryan hanging out with Zoe. He follows them as they make their way to the pantry and find huge tins of ice cream. Butcher soon asks Zoe to give them a minute, and she leaves the room while Butcher has a private word with his son. Zoe then decides to return to her mother's room, where she finds herself face to face with Kimiko and Frenchie, among other agents from Dakota Bob Singer's security detail. They seem to be rummaging through Victoria's belongings to find some classified information, and they try to convince Zoe to give them a minute and wait outside. However, Zoe couldn't be fooled by their words, and she soon displays her powers in a flash and lunges at Frenchie. A bunch of strange appendages break through her braces and extend from her mouth, and these tentacles seem to have sharp teeth attached to their mouths. They grab one of the men by the face, and soon blood splurts everywhere, as these appendages act like tiny creatures capable of destroying a person. While he falls to the floor amid a pool of blood, Frenchie tries to surrender and even uses his communication system to alert the others and inform them about Zoe being a Supe. While Annie and Mother's Milk rush to Frenchie's rescue, Kimiko tries to divert Zoe's attention from Frenchie by lunging at her, but ends up getting attacked as well. Somehow they manage to make their way out of the room and jump off the building with Zoe on their tail. On the other hand, Victoria pays Huey a visit, who accuses her of turning her daughter into a monster. Since they had some history history together, Victoria reminds Huey of the times he'd spent with Zoe, buying her snacks and staying up late to play Uno with her. He then asks her why she didn't tell him about Zoe's true nature sooner, but their conversation takes a bitter turn, and they end up bickering sooner or later. As the season progresses, Zoe makes a brief appearance in the 3rd episode. We'll keep the red flag flying here. While the episode has a lot going on, Zoe's character remains on the sidelines as she accompanies her mother to a vaught on ice practice. Since this group consisted of members of the Seven, Victoria decides that it would be a convenient spot for her to meet Sister Sage and Homelander. While Victoria gets busy with her own things, Zoe waits in the corner and scrolls on her phone while her mother finally comes back to her. She assures Zoe that she'll only take 10 more minutes and then they can grab frozen hot chocolate from Serendipity. Zoe doesn't seem to take up much space in the plot so far, and we only see a brief but terrifying sequence of her using her powers in the show. However, she seems to come up in several conversations between Victoria and Huey, or even Homelander for that matter, and it's been established that Victoria would go to any lengths to protect her daughter. Keeping that in mind, we can certainly expect her to play a bigger role in the episodes that will be released in due course, and we can even keep our fingers crossed for more scenes where she displays her powers. Powers and abilities of Zoe Neuman explained. On the same note, we witnessed some of Zoe's powers this season, especially when she released 4-toothed tentacles from her mouth. These tentacles were referred to as nested mouths, as Zoe could unleash them whenever she wanted to attack an opponent. These mouths had incredibly sharp teeth that could devour a person's flesh and bone in no time, and they could do considerable harm to Supes as well as humans. She first displayed this ability when she attacked the agents that had made their way to her mother's room, and took us by surprise when she devoured the head of an agent, and also did considerable damage to Kimiko's arm. While Zoe's ability to unleash strange appendages from her mouth caught us all by surprise, she displayed several other powers that might have gone unnoticed in the show. For instance, she seems to have superhuman strength as a result of her transformation, after being injected with Compound V. When 2 CIA agents lunge at her and try to restrain her by grabbing her shoulders, she manages to overpower and kick them away. Later on, she even defends herself against Kimiko, even though she takes her by surprise and successfully throws her off her body to free herself. Along the same lines, Zoe's been blessed with a regenerative healing factor due to the compound, and she once used this ability to heal from a gunshot wound in no time. In fact, she barely took any notice of the guard who fired this shot at her, and simply continued to fight Frenchie while barely bleeding. This highlighted her superhuman durability, which she later demonstrated once again when she was shoved against a glass frame by Kimiko. Zoe barely winced over the pain and then bounced back to attack Kimiko without taking any note of her injuries. Besides her superhuman strength and durability, Zoe had superhuman hearing, just like other Supes, which allowed her to pick up on sounds that went unnoticed by humans. What are the weaknesses of Zoe? While Zoe's superhuman hearing could be considered a blessing by some, it did have its own disadvantages and could be perceived as a weakness as well. Since she did not have this ability before injecting Compound V, Zoe was not able to pick up on certain frequencies altogether. However, she could hear any and every frequency as a Supe, and certain frequencies could hurt her to an extent where she would be temporarily neutralized upon hearing them. Marvelous verdict. To wrap things up, Zoe Neuman has made quite a mark with her display of powers in these initial episodes of The Boys Season 4. While she's left the audience speechless with her striking powers, we truly don't know what to expect since she's not been written into The Boys comics. Fortunately for us, we won't have to wait too long to know more about her, as we have an entire season ahead of us to witness her in action once again. While Victoria Neuman has proved to be quite a worthy antagonist, Zoe has yet to prove her worth, but we can keep our fingers crossed as we wait for her to appear in the limelight and smash a few more heads in upcoming episodes. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!